I'm going to call to order this special meeting in the Paradise Irrigation District, Tuesday, February 2nd, 2016 at 2 p.m. I'd like you all to stand right now and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Hats off, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like everybody in the audience and the board members to please silence or turn off your cell phones. We do not have any distractions. If you have to take a call for some reason, please exit the room, that door over there, quietly, and take your phone call at that point. Georgianne, can I have a roll call vote, or a roll call, please?
Director Kim Hunt.
Here.
Director Larry Duncan.
Here.
President Seth Corolla.
Here.
Vice President Doug Fletcher.
Here.
Director Bill Kellogg.
Here.
Thank you, Georgianne. We will now move into item 2, discussion on meeting venue, location, date, and time to set a special meeting of the Paradise Irrigation District Board of Directors for continuance of the January 29th, 2016 special meeting of the Board of Directors regarding proposed increases to water service rates and charges under Proposition 218.
I move we continue the meeting, the January 29 meeting, to Monday, February 8 at the Paradise Performing Arts Center, beginning at 6:30 p.m.
I'll second. Is there any discussion with the board members?
I'd rather have it on Thursday, the 4th, for two reasons. One, it's earlier, and the other thing is that we don't have to worry about the 100 attendance to the senior center, because I don't know what time they're there.
It's just, yeah, I thought maybe Thursday would be pushing it a little bit, and we give more notice, more notice to the public, and so we don't seem like it's a railroad is really why I picked that job, that date.
Okay. I don't feel that way.
Well, I share that same opinion. If we rush it too much, then I don't want the public to think we're pushing it through too fast. So my vote is for Monday the 8th. Thursday the 4th, I also have something going on that I'd have to be.
Where is it? Where are you?
Paradise Performing Arts Center.
Okay, good. I didn't hear where
The big one, Paradise
It
Performing
has a
Arts
seating
Center.
capacity of 760, and I believe the total occupancy is 796 in the building. So that's a larger venue than the senior center, and they had an event going on there anyway on the 8th. Their seating capacity is only 400 on there, so.
Plus the seats are better to the performance center.
The Performing Arts Center, just a little more comfort.
It'll be a long meeting and might as well
We
be
get to
comfortable.
perform up on the stage then, where we sit and talk to everybody?
You have that option.
Same circus we always see.
Well, the only place they'll see us is up on the stage.
We will be paying $25 an hour for the person who's going to manage the sound system for however long the meeting takes. We have the venue through the night, if that's what it takes, and I would advise all directors to be prepared to go the distance. So, Mr. Fletcher, did you have any comments?
Are you going to hear from the?
I'm going to hear from the board first, and then I'm going to hear from the public.
Right. I know that we need to get on with this, but we do not, as Director Hunt mentioned, we don't want to make this feel like they have been feeling out here right now that we were bulldozing it through. That's the
45
feeling.
days, that's a short time.
Well, it's not just 45 days. It's been 2.5 years we've been talking about
I know,
this,
right,
or
but-
more.
I hear
But the
you.
notice
Since we
was
know this,
45 days.
there has
But we didn't
been,
take any action, what we should have back in 11, when I was talking about it. You got tired of me talking about it.
hard to take action on a project. You can't define a dollar amount.
I was talking about when we were running out of money, which we did.
Paying for the project out of our own reserves does cost money. There's no two ways about it.
I'm not talking about the project. at
That's
all.
that's the
I'm
main,
talking about just running out of money.
okay, well,
And we were aware of that. I was aware of it when I got on the board because I started looking at it. But that's neither here nor there. I'm ready to hear from the public.
how about Director Kellogg?
Oh, I think I would be more comfortable at Paradise Ridge Center, Senior Center. They have a lower stage and it's something like what we're doing here, we'd be on eye level. If we go to the Performing Arts Center, we're going to be sitting in an auditorium, the only place they can see us if we're up on the stage, and we're not going to be able to look the public in the eye and talk to them easily. I think it'd be more sensible to Ridge Senior Center, and I would think 400 seats would be ample.
The last time I was at the Performing Arts Center, I believe they have a pretty good sound system, so I
I
don't
realize
think
they
there's
have
anywhere in the
excellent
room.
sound and excellent chairs and all of that.
During
You could go to
public-
sleep easier there, I think.
During public comment, directors will not be engaging the public in conversation anyway, so you really won't have to worry about being able to talk to them one-on-one. We will have a podium, I assume, that's set up somewhere center stage where they can, or center aisle, where they can give their public comment, and it will be heard by all, I believe, the system. Also, having it at a venue that only seats 400, if we got more than 400 there, our glass was pretty strong the other night when people were pounding on the windows out there, but I'm not sure about the senior center or if they want people pounding on their glass, saying there's not enough seating for them. So the largest venue in this town is the Performing Arts Center. We have to keep this meeting in this town, so there's no other place that we can have that can seat more people than that right there. They have graciously donated the Performing Arts Center to us at no charge, and like I said, the only charge we are going to have is for their sound system guy, which we will pay at the rate of $25 an hour. So,
I've been at a couple of productions where we were using that center and.
the Performing Arts Center?
Performing Arts Center, yeah. And if they turn on all the lights, you can still see the audience. You know, I love to look at my audience like I'm looking at it here, and you don't really see that from quite often from the stage up there. But you have enough of a view that it would be fine. And looking at the crowd that we've gathered here for this meeting, we could easily wind up with more than 400.
Quite possibly. That's why having it at the largest place that we possibly can is the best idea for 'em. Is there any more comments from the directors? Not seeing any. I will now take public comments on this agenda item. If you'd like to speak, please get up to the podium.
Thank you, President Corolla. I would also emphasize that we have previously used that facility for a venue when we were getting rid of waste management and interviewing other garbage companies. The room was almost packed, and had we tried to hold it anyplace else, it just plain would not have worked. The PPAC was a perfect venue on that occasion. As you know, there was a lot of, if you attended, there was a lot of public input at that time. It was a very controversial issue. People were in love with waste management. Oh, I want my same driver back. Don't change companies. And yet here we are with NRWS, a huge and complete change from what waste management offered us, and people are pleased as punch. In other words, people don't mind hearing the right information and making a change when it's appropriate. I think you'll get some interesting comments at the PPAC.
Thank you, Ward. Mr. Wentland.
This will be fast. The only small drawback of the auditorium is it's not conducive for people to get out of their seats and make it up, because it's not designed for that. It's designed for people to get up at an intermission or something and all get up. So if somebody out in the middle of a row wants to speak, it's very difficult for them. So.
Don't you have a movable mic? I think it said on this thing. Sound system, microphone, sound system. Do we have a movable
He's
mic
just
at the auditorium?
There'll be a setup mic in there, but I don't know if there's a movable mic. I don't believe that there is. I think there'll be one podium, and
If you'll recall, we collected comment cards at the beginning of this meeting that will be continued. So we'll be collecting more comment cards. So where we're a little more free at this meeting without a list of people, at that point, we'll be calling people one at a time. So we can let the next speaker have a heads up so they can make their way to the podium while the one speaker's speaking.
it's a great idea.
I was wondering if we could get that date out just a little bit to give the people a little bit more time to coordinate for the meeting. It seems like the 8th is still pretty soon, and it still gets that feeling like it's been being ramrodded. So if it could be even to that Friday of that same week, I think the people would appreciate a little more time.
I'm going to let legal counsel go ahead and field that. We've given the appropriate amount of time for Prop 218.
Sure. Well, you've satisfied legal requirements. I think gentleman's referring to is more of a policy matter. Legal requirements are 45 days, and we actually, somebody do the math. December 8th was the date on which the notice was authorized to be sent. Then the mailing was approximately the Monday thereafter. So the date of mailing started the 45-day period. The 29th was probably the 46th day. So we're already well past what the law requires. But the speaker's comment is more in the nature of a policy consideration. You can certainly go longer than 45 days. Obviously, that's what we're doing. But legal requirements have been met.
Unfortunately, with the availability of dates at the Performing Arts Center, we have a holiday, the next available date is our regular board meeting, and then the next date after that is after our board meeting, which would be the 18th. I believe that the people of Paradise have had the past 2.5 years, plus this past will be at almost 60 days, to get notified, to get understanding of what's going on here. I heard a lot of people, took a lot of phone calls this past week where they said, we just found out about this. You just found out about it. But yet it is a major issue on their mind, but yet they just found out about it when it's been, mailers have gone out. What all did we send out in our bills?
January bills had information.
Had information in it. Was there not a separate mailer that had I thought that Cedar Creek sent out, I thought we had a separate mailer, maybe I'm just, yep. We held 2 workshops on it. And I do invite everybody to go to the website. I think there's the links on the website, the PID website, that have the 2 workshops that you can go onto the YouTube and see the 2 workshops. I believe every question that could possibly, reasonable and unreasonable, that could possibly have been answered or asked during those workshops was answered by George or staff or legal in there, and should answer 99% of all questions that you could pose coming up on the 8th here. So I believe that everybody should go on and take a look at those, because there's a lot of information on there which will bring you up to speed on what's actually transpiring, and then it will not drag out the meeting on the 8th till 3 o'clock in the morning.
So I understand that PID has fulfilled the legal requirements. It's more of a show of a good faith between the entity and the people, and giving the people just a little bit more time to just get prepared for that meeting. I don't think we're asking too much by extending it from the 8th to, even if it's the following Monday, if it's a competing interest because of the board meeting on that Friday.
I can appreciate your position. I do believe that we have given ample time and ample notice and ample information. And like I said, this is not a 45-day event. This has been a 2.5-year event that has been going on. So it's not new information, just new information to some people. So as far as the rate increase goes, that is new information. And whether we wait 1 year from today's date, if your answer is no, it's still no probably. So giving you an ample amount of time is probably not going to change your vote, I would imagine. Sir.
I think that no protest forms were sent to enough people. I asked at the other board meeting and everything whether you could send it out with the next bill on your water talk letter, which you could have done for just the cost of printing the 1 protest form, and send it to everybody in the district. But I got my water talk, I got my bill. I didn't get a protest form on that. I've talked to a lot of older people and passed out a lot of forms, and none of them knew about it. I handed one out this morning, and a lady didn't know about it, so I don't think you've done ample work on your part as far as the board and everybody else at getting this to the people. If they had a protest form and they knew that if you didn't hand in a protest form, you're voting yes. If you do hand in a protest form, you're voting no. Now, in the last California election, 38% of the people voted. So it's the same thing here. 38% of the people, 38% of 50%, that's what's going to vote on this. So there's no way possible we could overcome and get a no vote on this situation.
Thank you for your comment.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Oh, and will the meetings be televised, as far as one, or videotaped, so that we can get a
Going to be
copy of
recorded,
that?
I'm sure.
We do not
We're not,
videotape.
we're not videotaping this one? I
We
know
never have.
We've never
I know we had video running for the other room. I didn't know if it was recording the other
Last
night.
meeting, we had video going just to provide feed in the other room. If you choose either Thursday or Monday, our person at video is not going to be available, so.
Well, I'm sure there's one person in the crowd that'll probably be videotaping, so I'm sure a ample supply of copies can be provided.
I asked for a videotape the other day. I went in there and said they'd give me a flash drive or thumb drive or whatever you call it. They said I could have one. I went today to find out about it. I could have the flash drive, video only, no audio whatsoever. You know, I find that kind of unacceptable too.
I don't.
I can explain that.
Please, George.
And you're talking about a pretty quick turnaround from your request for one, which we were trying to accommodate you rather quickly.
I know you were.
And the only reason you didn't get audio is because that audio the purpose of that videotape was to provide a feed into that other room. So we had to turn the audio off to ensure we weren't getting feedback, which I know all of that you were here heard the feedback. So we weren't able to put audio into the camera.
Okay.
There is an audio copy available.
There'll be an audio copy available. You'll have to tune them up and watch them watch while you listen at the same time.
Okay, but now, forgot what I was going to even ask you about. I had asked at that time when I requested before the meeting and everything, would there be a video of the meeting on the last one? What was that, 29th? And I was assured there would be available a video. I expected the video to be audio and video. I didn't think about mentioning both.
We are not audiovisual technicians here. We work with what we can. I thought at the time that was going to be available to you. But when we're trying to put together a meeting with a room full of people,
Right.
you have to adjust. And I actually have to correct myself. Because of our tape recorder, it was giving feedback also. So we do not have an audio tape of Friday night either.
Okay, but you had one of the meeting I attended and talked to you and asked you if you could please have a complete audio and video of your presentation and then the public's presentation. You graciously said yes, and that's exactly what we got, was an audio and video
Of the second workshop.
at the second workshop.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I think that should be available if you got it for the second workshop, none for the first workshop, none for the board of directors, which I understand they never do that. And I think those rules should be changed and voted on too, so that we have an audio and a visual, because hearing some of these people speak, how rude they are and the things they do and everything. If you had a video of somebody throwing a piece of paper on the floor from another person, I think that's disrespectful, and I think the public should know that.
No, you need to speak to these folks.
Like I said, there's a
Different
gentleman.
topic.
We're off topic, but there's a gentleman in the back that does this and puts it up on YouTube, I believe, Lauren. So just about every meeting that we've ever had has audio and visual on it. That
Lauren wasn't here for some mistake, you know.
yeah.
To
not
do
our
that and
policy.
everything.
But it's not our policy. We have usually an audio copy that can happen. I guess there were technical difficulties with our recorder, which is always, but Georgiana was still doing a written version of it, so I'm sure there's some copy of what transpired that night that could be provided. We'll have minutes available. Just like there are every month of our meetings, there are minutes available to be read.
And can it be looked into some way? I don't know how to proceed with this because I'm new at this type of thing, where the board members will vote on having an audio and a visual copy of every meeting that they have.
If the board
If
chooses.
the board
to
chooses to put that on an
pass
agenda item.
policy,
Good.
we can do that.
I
If we
appreciate
choose not to pass that policy, then we won't do that.
Okay. And I can count on it not being passed. then.
Comment, Mr. President.
And it's pretty simple.
This is public comment, so we're going to hold our comments till the end.
It had to do with what he was talking about.
I'll let you comment at the end. Yes, sir.
I'd like to point out the fact that you've rationalized about the efforts to communicate, okay? And that'd be fine. The only problem is, this is communicating right now. The meeting the other night and the people, and hopefully the meeting that's going to be coming up, okay? That'll be the communications, okay? And all past communications, kiss it goodbye because it didn't work, okay? For whatever reason, okay? Whatever reason got these people to be here Friday, well, we can speculate, but it's a fact, okay? And hindsight's good if it helps you look forward. Let's make sure we look forward instead of backwards on the situation, okay? So it's extremely important. I also like to point out, okay, that I think there's a strong likelihood both the people here today and the people here on last Friday, they're voters, okay?
Yes, sir.
And they'll have an opportunity in the traditional fashion of knowing that they're going to be going to vote, and whatever shows up on their ballot, hopefully they'll be prepared to vote on it, okay? But that's the communications, okay? So the communications of the past, kiss it goodbye, for whatever reason, okay? It's nice to rationalize. It sounded rational, okay? But that's no reason to ignore the fact that this is where we are today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm addressing the board. My name is Marcia. You are our public servants. The people in this town want to be educated. The flyer that went out, I canvassed 100 people in town. There was not one that could understand the flyer that went out that essentially said, if you don't get a protest form, 5,001, this automatically goes into effect. Nobody could understand that form. It would suggest improved communication. When we finally did get a clue about what it was suggesting, you perhaps got a clue about the fact that we wanted more information, and people showed up at the Friday meeting because we would like it to be looked into further before that is passed. We put our trust in you for the good of the whole community. That is all of us. A recall committee has been formed because our town is very disturbed about the current events. We appreciate you taking into consideration the fact that we have a population in this town that does not know how to download, that cannot get to this particular building by 5 o'clock to get a protest form. We have many seniors who are not computer literate, yet they make up a good 40% of our town. We have people on fixed income. We have people on disability. We don't have people in this town, the majority median income is in the $30,000 range. This bill is not just about doubling water rates. It has way more than that involved.
Sir.
We are looking forward to.
Mr. President, I think he's way off the subject.
Excuse me. We are looking forward to having our option and speaking our piece and listening to you, and we appreciate you listening to us because we're all in this together. Thank you.
Thank you.
You might revisit.
In Robert's rules, aren't you supposed to have the names of who's speaking for the record in case the media...
We don't operate under Robert's Rules of Order, and you're out of order. Why don't you just re-educate them about what we're here for tonight?
Okay.
Okay, I'm leaving the circus.
So, Okay, so
Well, you're,
just so we're clear, your comments right now are on the meeting venue, location, date, and time. I let this last lady go ahead and speak, but if you're going to repeat the exact same thing that she just said, please do not, because that is definitely off topic from what we are speaking to right now.
I understand that.
Not trying to be rude, folks, just so that you understand, but there are certain rules for what we're doing here, and right now you are speaking to the fact of meeting venue, location, date, and time.
And Mr. President, let me add, these comments critical to the rate increase, you'll have an opportunity to make them. It's just not now is not the appropriate time.
Yeah.
Okay?
On whatever date and venue that we wind up with, that is the time.
I understand that. Would you please repeat the time of the meeting you're proposing?
We're proposing right now at the Paradise Performing Arts Center, Monday, February the 8th at 6:30 p.m.
6:30, thank you. One more topic that I believe is germane to this, and that is we now are allowed to submit our
Protest form?
objections, our protest letters. Can we continue to submit those until this new meeting, number one? And will we still submit them to the PID office, or will there be a third-party drop?
There's not a third-party drop. You will be able to present them the night of the meeting, whatever
Night of the meeting.
date and venue, and all the way up till the close of public comment, you will be able to turn those in. At the end of the public participation part, that will be the end, and then we will move into the section where we will have a disinterested party count, and then at that point, we will all sit quietly, hopefully,
All right.
and we will wait until we hear the end of that.
Okay.
There are going to be some presentations, I will tell you that night, on legal counsel is going to give maybe a little PowerPoint. I don't know if we're still planning on doing that.
I think we're actually going to address this in the next agenda item. So
okay.
we'll hopefully have
good.
your questions answered then.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. What agenda item are we on right now? Number 4?
Two.
We're on number 2. Well, I suggest that we move it back till Friday, just for the fact that you're giving only 7 calendar days, and it's very difficult for some people to make schedules. They may already have doctor's appointments or scheduled events for that evening. So by pushing it out, you might draw a bigger crowd. And I wanted to thank you for putting your time in on the board, too. I appreciate your service. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Do you have a doctor at 6:30 p.m.? Because I'd like to find out, because that would be good for me. Right. I'm not going to go to San Francisco.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Newman, and I had to have a couple of comments to make. The first comment is, this past Monday when the meeting was here, there was a lack of insight, or it was an oversight on your part, or your council's part, or your staff's part. It was a mess out there. I realized you were in here and you had no idea what was going on, but I'll tell you what I saw that I still see. Trying to find parking. It was raining. It was foggy. People were already high on emotion. There was an old woman. She was hunched over. There was no way she could stand straight. She was about like this with a cane, with one of those drugstore ponchos, crossing the street right here. There was no assistance. There was no law enforcement. VIPS was not here. I would suggest and encourage, and I would encourage staff to step up and do this as well, contact VIPS, contact our law enforcement. I'm not sure what the weather is going to be like on Monday, if that's the date that you so choose to have this meeting, but I think it would be a huge benefit to the community if there was at least some traffic control for safety of the citizens. The second thing I want to say is that I have a problem, and I think if you sat back and reflected, you would also realize it is a problem. We're protesting to the very jurisdiction, the utility, that is proposing an increase. There is no third party gathering those protest forms. Just now, it was stated that a third party would actually calculate and verify those third-party protest forms. However, it seems like that's an error on your part, that there should be a third party involved at this point. It's kind of like letting the lion into the hen house. That's a concern for me. So, thank you.
Legal, would you like to comment on that? Because
the next agenda item will cover that.
Okay, so yes,
if there's
we're gonna address
a remaining question,
That's what I-
next agenda item, remind me.
Lauren.
Thank you, board members. Lauren, I got here in 1947, through no fault of my own, by the way. But I would like to say that it's abundantly apparent to me that we're having to rely on you for the care and the well-being of our ballots. As hard as they was to understand to get them here, I feel like you guys are not doing your due diligence on taking care of them, because we have to trust you that they got through the office okay, got through the lower echelon, and got to the person who's counting them without anybody really being responsible, because they're changing hands without anybody ever having to write. Seems like to me the first guy ought to have to count them, put down how many there was, and put a signature on it when they move it, because we have no way to know. Let's say one of your staff decides that they really want the raise and they just happen to drop a few hundred off in the garbage can. How do we know that? We don't have no idea that.
Lauren, your comments are,
in the next one.
yeah, and your comments are completely insulting to this district, so.
Well,
I will tell you, I will tell
wait
you.
a minute, I'm speaking, thank you. The clock's running, let me have my time. So the thing about it is.
Sir, you're not on the subject.
Yes, I am. I'm on the subject of the vote.
Meeting and venue and date and time.
Yes.
No, you aren't.
Yes, I am. I'm on the way you vote to get to the venue. You're going to collect the votes in, right?
No, we're not. We're talking about the meeting and where we're going to have it, and that's it. The next item, we'll talk about what you are.
Yes.
Okay, I'll gladly wait to chew you out. Thank you.
That'd be fine.
Okay. Thank you, Lauren. We look forward to it. Okay, is there any more comment from the public on the meeting, venue, location, date, and time for the special
I just
meeting?
want to say the PPAC seems like a good place, but also if the date gets changed or whatever, Cinema 7 might be an option. They had that economic summit there a few years back. There was ample parking, ample seating, in case there's a conflict in dates.
The where, I didn't hear.
The movie theater
Oh, Cinnamon Center.
does not hold as much. We have the largest venue in town we've picked for you guys.
I'm David Kensinger. I live in Paradise. I'm a ratepayer. I think this meeting that you're calling for this coming Monday, is way too soon. And I think we should have 2 or 3 weeks' time to organize and answer this thing. And, as far as insulting the board, I feel that the board is insulting all the people of Paradise with the proposal that you offer.
Thank you for clarifying that, sir. Anybody else from the public that would like to speak? On item 2? You've had your time, sir.
That's the
No,
second.
sir, you've had your time.
Oh.
Yeah, you only get, you've had your time. Unfortunately, you don't get to get back up twice on the same item. Anybody else that would like to speak to item 2?
Just a couple points of clarification. How many people does this venue that you're proposing seat?
760 seats, and I believe the total capacity for the building is 796. I'm not exactly sure, but I think that
This is the largest venue that's available?
This is the largest venue in Paradise.
Okay. And the other thing was on the petitions, I know it's not the subject, but the gentleman asked if they could be handed in prior to the meeting at the office. Is that acceptable?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
You can mail them in, you can hand them in.
Excellent. I didn't
You
get the answer
can
to that.
turn them in the night of the whatever venue, whatever meeting night that we come up with, all the way up to the end of public participation.
And part of the reason for this other venue, of course, besides it being the largest, is it's being donated for free on certain days?
Yeah, there's certain availability days that
Correct.
they have. They have other events going on.
That we'd have to work
And that
around.
also that we had availability for their sound system guy.
I understand that, okay. So the options would be Friday, and then we'd have to jump to the 18th, was the next available
Thursday.
day?
This Thursday, the 4th,
Okay, okay.
2 days from now.
All right.
Which
Or,
I felt was way too short a time. Director Hunt, I think,
Okay.
also felt that same way. And that was the next one. Then it gets pushed all the way out till the 18th.
I see, okay.
On there.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else would like to comment on item number 2? Sir, you've had time, so if there's somebody else that would like to comment on item number 2. Seeing no more, I'm going to come back to the board, see if you'd like to make any comments as to what you heard on item 2, meeting place and time. Director Kellogg?
I agree that we should have a little more time, but it looks like three of you already, you three have already agreed, so. anyway.
I'm
Bill?
glad you know how we're going to vote.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
said I didn't like it to begin with. so
Well, okay, Larry, I know sometimes you vote yourself, so
I always vote
write down.
myself.
Yeah, I know you always vote yourself. That's the end of my comments, Larry. Thank you.
I think
Dr. Flesher?
You're
Yes,
insulting me.
I would
No,
like
not
to,
insulting.
I've been pondering this myself, and I didn't get the times that the center or the Performing Arts Center were available. And I know I did not want it on a Friday, and they're not available on Friday, which is good. And the reason for that, in this packet, I have a letter from an individual that is not an Adventist. I have some extremely good friends that are Adventists, and two of my three doctors are Adventists. And we were infringing on their ability to come and make their voice heard in a government article if we held it on a Friday evening, so that's not an option. But I think we should have it at the earliest on Thursday the 18th, and I would actually prefer Thursday, February the 25th. And I think that would be about as much time as anybody could expect. And so, that would hopefully kind of relieve some of these people that think that we're trying to bulldoze this through. And one of the first meetings that this thing came out with, I mentioned here to the public, and it's in the minutes, that I was extremely disappointed the way that we were handling this, and just as a board member elected by you people. So I would like to see it either on Thursday, February the 18th, and preferably on Thursday the 25th. That's all the comments I have.
Thank you, Director Flesher. Director Duncan?
No comments.
Director Hunt?
No, I already made mine.
And I have been speaking all along through, so I think you've heard my comments. Seeing no more comments from the board, we are going to have a roll call vote on.
I'd like to make an amendment.
Okay.
Okay. My amendment is to delete the 8th and change it to the 18th.
I am out of town on the 18th.
Huh?
I am out of town on the 18th.
Well, then let's make it on the 25th.
Okay.
I had to cancel one of my classes
Before you go on with all that, I'm waiting for.
Oh, a second, I'll second.
Figured it was going to be you, Bill. Okay, thank you. Okay,
I didn't know you were gonna do
moved.
that.
It's been moved and seconded for an amendment onto the date and time, the venue. We will first vote on the amendment. Do I have to get public comment on this?
I call the
do not.
question.
Okay.
We've discussed it.
Yeah, we have. Okay. Georgianne, a vote on the amendment to change it to Thursday, February 25th at 6:30 p.m.
Director Hunt?
No.
Director Duncan?
No.
Director Flesher?
Yes.
Director Kellogg?
Yes.
And as your president, I get to vote last, and my vote is no on the amendment. Vote on the original motion, which was Monday, February the 8th at 6:30 p.m. at the Paradise Performing Arts Center.
Director Hunt?
Yes.
Director Duncan?
Yes.
Director Flesher?
No.
Director Kellogg?
No.
Director Perla?
Yes. Motion passes 3-2, the noes being Director Kellogg and Director Flesher. The meeting will now be set for that date.
At 6:30 PM.
6:30 PM.
I'm very happy
So,
that
hopefully the news.
Director Hunt set that 6:30, because that gives everybody an opportunity to get here that's working. When they
Absolutely.
work late.
That sets a much better time than 5 PM.
I do listen occasionally, Doug.
Item number 3, discussion to establish a process on conducting the public hearing continued from the January 29, 2016 special meeting of the Board of Directors. I believe we're going to hear from legal counsel on this.
Yeah, I'll introduce this topic. I asked that it be included in the agenda for a couple reasons. One, the board members individually have reached out to me having questions that I would describe as procedure related. What's Proposition 218? What does it mean? What are we required to do? And then just how are we going to conduct the hearing in an efficient manner? And I've also had a number of inquiries from just members of the public asking about similar topics. So our original plan last Friday was I put together a brief PowerPoint presentation, and we could even go through that right now if you give us a couple of minutes and are interested in doing that. It just provided an overview of Proposition 218, which is somewhat of an odd procedure. It's only applicable to local public agencies, not the state, not Cal Water or any other private entity. So just kind of a very brief overview of Proposition 218. And then an overview of the procedure for conducting the public hearing, the vote. I've heard again there's some concern about how the vote will be conducted and by whom. So I was going to go through all of that. And again, there's a PowerPoint presentation. We could do that now, or we could do it, just save it for Monday evening. So the order of proceeding would have been myself with that PowerPoint, providing background information, and then staff, George, would have given kind of a frequently asked question, overview of the proposed rates. Then we would have conducted the public comment portion of the hearing, and then returned to the board for board discussion. So that was kind of the overview of how the sequence of events is, at least we originally planned. If you as a board want to change that around, that's not a legal requirement. Really, the only legal requirement is we conduct the public hearing and give the public an opportunity to voice its input. But aside from that, it's really discretionary how you want to conduct the hearing, and whether you even want PowerPoints or an overview of the rates from staff, those types of things.
Question? How long does the PowerPoint take?
Not long. It's maybe 4 or 5 slides.
Okay. How many minutes you figure? You talking? Lawyers usually take longer.
Yeah, I'll, with that in mind, I'll try to keep it short.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is because I'd sort of like to see it now, too. That way, there won't be any surprises at the meeting. I don't think there will be that, but I think the public would probably enjoy it, too.
It's up to you.
Does give some insight as to how we came up with the rate structure. Does your part, no. George's
That's
part?
George.
George's part is to the legal portion of it? Okay. Okay. I know there's some rules in Prop 218, and the public must understand we didn't write Prop 218. We're just following it. Sounded like a good thing, I'm sure, back in 1996, but it is flawed. But we didn't design it. We just have to follow it. So that's, I want people to bear that in mind. I've heard a lot of talk that we're just, pushing this system through and we've designed this way of doing this. We didn't design this way of doing this. This is the way that it's set up for a publicly owned company, or entity. So it's hard to, go outside those rules and change them and bend them and make them work. So if the other members of the board, do you have a question, comment for Dustin? Voice an opinion whether or not you would like to see the PowerPoint real quick?
Dustin, are you going to include the proposition that's going to be probably be on the ballot this fall? The explanation of that on 218?
I did not include that in the current PowerPoint. If that's the board's direction, I can. But basically, what Director Kellogg's alluding to is there's a Proposition 218 reform proposal that statewide associations are putting together and trying to implement. It would be on the November 2016 ballot. So that's kind of in its initial stages. We're not sure whether it'll actually get on the ballot. Even if it does get on the ballot, we're not sure, obviously, today whether it'll pass or not. So, but again, Director Kellogg, if that's something you'd like me to, the board would like me to touch upon, I can.
Well, I don't know about the board, but I would like you to, at least a brief explanation, because it will reform, if it passes, the way it started out as structured, the way I understand it. It will change the basis for 218, and we could actually change based on the new rules, if it passes, we could change the rates. And we wouldn't be violating anything of the existing 218 calls for a uniform service charge across, and that's what the court case was about. But this new proposition, if it passes, will actually reform that and allow us to have lower rates for people that are at the lower end of the stick on paying their water bills and so forth, somewhat like what we have right now. I can remember Seth and I working at the last time we had a rate increase, and we managed to get that group lower, and then Larry and I worked on stretching it out. The things we can't do under the existing 218 since that court case.
I personally think, Justin, it would be good for you to elaborate on it a little bit so that people know what's coming down the pike. I've talked to Cindy, I think it is Tufts or whatever.
Cindy Tuck.
Yeah, a couple of times as a suggestion on the flyer we get from our water association, and
the problem.
Told me what you could tell, but if they change, if that initiative goes through, and every bigwig like you are pushing for it, it's wonderful that you're working on that. It'll really make 218 more relevant.
Okay, I just want to add a point that this is the whole state of California, and it passed by 67% last time, and so I wouldn't get my hopes up that it's going to pass, because we have far more voters in Southern California than we do.
Well, I actually think,
and they like us to mess up here.
Well, it actually would have more help to the water districts, and there's thousands of them down there in the south end of the state than it would up here in the north end. Don't you think, Dustin?
Yeah.
Public special districts like ours. Yeah.
So, switching topics a little bit, a couple other items for you as board members to consider is we're going to have a lot of speakers, and we want to make sure we give everybody an opportunity to speak. We also want to be efficient in how, we don't want to have that little old lady that doesn't get a chance to speak because everybody else is consumed all the time. So I'm thinking to myself, just throwing this out there as a proposal, would the board like me to conduct the public hearing? That way you as board members can just take notes of questions to ask, ideas that are raised, and then when we get through all the public commenters, we can close that portion of the hearing, then come back to the board and we can each address each of your questions. Would that be a little more efficient than kind of this back and forth that we tend to get into? It's normal to do that. That's what we do in everyday conversations, but it makes for an inefficient, time-consuming hearing.
Let me interject something here as the 3-year member on the board. I've watched President Corolla handle several of those the last term that he had. He always has done a great job. I think the 29th trying to prove that. Except you did a good job keeping the lid on and the shingles on the roof before somebody blew out through them. And so if he wants to handle the public section, he can do it. If I was in that position or he wasn't here, I'd ask you to do it. If you're a true professional, you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I would ask you to do it. I think that we should appoint you as the moderator for that. Keeps it into more of a non-personal basis. All the board gets to doesn't have to really try and control the public. That would be your responsibility for whatever the rules are and enforcing the rules. And in that light, since we're talking about rules, I'd like to ask this question about aggregate time limits for the discussion for receiving public comments. I understand that when the town of Paradise received public comments for the marijuana initiative or ruling, whatever it was, that they limited public comments to 30 minutes for the pro arguments and a cumulative amount of 30 minutes for the nay arguments, and then they cut it off. So my question is, was that legal? Is it a violation of the Brown Act? And if we were to establish some type of reasonable aggregate time limits, is that legal?
I don't represent the town, so let me qualify my answer with that.
You can send them a bill.
My guess is, again, not having the details of the town or its ordinance, et cetera, but we're talking about two different things. One is the normal time afforded under the Brown Act. That's the open meeting law that the district and the town operate under. You can put limits on aggregate limits and individual speaker limits on individual agenda items or just general public comment portion. So the Brown Act affords you that opportunity. The difference here is we're dealing with a constitutional, the Proposition 218 is actually in the state constitution, and it says there shall be a public hearing and the board is required to consider all protests. So I would rather err on the side of caution, and we will have, whether it's Sepp Carolla as president or Dustin Cooper as legal counsel, whatever the board directs there, we will have measures to ensure that it's efficiently conducted. You know, I'll remind folks that if you join in a previous speaker's comments, all you need to say is, I support Mr. X's comments or Mrs. X's comments, and then move on to a new piece of information that you want to present to the board. So you don't need to just repeat the same information that previous speakers have said. So I understand your concern, and I think we can accommodate both what the Constitution requires and everybody's time concerns with just making sure we're on top of it, and I'm, you know, whether it's me or the president, reminding folks to speak to new issues.
Well, it sounded like the Proposition 218 was silent on that topic, but you're saying to do it the most cautious way, err on the side of caution, make sure that we don't put a limit for
Proposition 218. It doesn't say you shall not include time limits, so it's not that explicit, but it does say you shall consider all protests. So my concern is if you set a time limit,
that's the way I'd go then.
Maybe
you
you
gotta consider all protests, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I have a question on the first thing we started talking about. This PowerPoint that you have on 218, that you're volunteered to show this evening, I would hopefully that you would repeat it again on the 8th at the board.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
That's really what it's designed for.
Yeah, I realize that. Well, I don't think it would hurt any of us to see it right now, and that way we'd have something to chew on to the 8th. Would you guys agree with that?
I would. I'd like to see it too.
I'd like to see it. I really like the idea of I'm nothing wrong with SEP, but the fact that you're a neutral person, you're not going to be voting on the thing. I think you running the meeting would be far better. That way SEP can have more.
SEP likes that idea too, so you're not hurting my feelings, not one bit.
Do we need a motion on that?
It will be part of whatever.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
I agree to the attorney. Thank you. I think that makes it unanimous.
Is this the only place we're going to be able to see it is up here?
No, we're working.
All right with you, Sam?
You're going to get it here?
Absolutely.
Well, I'm not sure these guys are on.
Push the button.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, so I started here, and please, board members, interrupt me this was what I was going to present on Friday. Now that we're doing this kind of in rehearsal form, if you see something that you'd like to change, let me know, and we'll make the changes, and I'll represent the modified version on Monday evening. So I was going to start with an overview of Proposition 218. I have fielded a lot of questions on this. It's somewhat of an odd process. It was adopted in 1996. Prior to that, there wasn't a direct customer involvement or an opportunity to protest. It was basically a Brown Act notice, which is typically 72 hours, and the board could adopt a rate increase, a majority of the board members. So there wasn't even an opportunity for a 45-day period, an official notice to property owners, or an opportunity to protest. So the Constitution really changed the landscape of how local public agencies like PID change their rates. Yes.
I'd like you to speak to whether at that time in 1996 was PID subject to Proposition 218, given our structure.
Right. There was no criticism of Howard Jarvis, but Proposition 218 is extremely poorly written. So there was a time period from 1996 to about 2004 when we didn't even know whether Proposition 218 applied to water rates. The language of the proposition says it applies to property-related services. Well, what's a property-related service? Is it trash? Is it electricity? So it took the Supreme Court in 2004 to decide that, yes, it is water rates. Yes, you are subject to this process. So for PID, beginning shortly thereafter, that's when we actually started to comply. And there's literally 10 cases or more every single year, published cases, further defining what Proposition 218 means. So this isn't, this is kind of a snapshot of where we stand right now. It's certainly not a perfectly written, unambiguous law. A previous speaker at one of your earlier meetings mentioned some confusion about whether a formal ballot is required as a legal matter to be mailed. That is not the case. The reason is because there's a difference in process whether we're on the fee side, as we are in this case, or Proposition 218 also addresses assessments, which is a completely different process. So if you sat down in front of your computer and read Proposition 218, keep in mind that there's two separate procedures and don't blend the two. What we're talking about here is a rate increase. And the law does not require a ballot. It can be provided as a matter of policy, but it's not legally required. So Proposition 218 has kind of the process to increase or impose new rates. Step one is to calculate the fee, and that's commonly referred to as a cost of service study. Mr. Barber, as a licensed engineer, prepared that on behalf of the district and stamped it about December 8th. That's a final document. It was actually adopted by the board on the 8th. That officially kicked off the process. Number two is the district is required to provide notice of the proposed rate change to record owners within the district. And that was done, I don't have the exact date, but it was shortly after that December 8th meeting. Monday after, okay. So that the date of mailing officially kick-started the 45-day period. And then at the end of the 45 days, not less than 45 days, the district is required by law to conduct a public hearing. And item number 4 there, I quote the exact language from Proposition 218 that says if there's a written protest, the fee cannot move forward. So the 29th was when we were scheduled to conduct the hearing. That was, the 46th, 47th day, something like that. Monday will be even further than that. So, again, legally speaking, adequate notice has been provided. You as the public can certainly say you ought to do more than what the law requires. That's a fair comment, but Myself, as the district's legal counsel, I'm only charged with making sure the minimum legal requirements are met. Then lastly, number 5, there's various requirements that the fees in and of themselves have to satisfy, and that's set forth in those sections. So, board members, this is when I was going to transition into kind of the hearing procedures, and this will be something that I present potentially with your input again on Monday. We will have a public comment portion of the hearing. Everyone who wishes to speak will be given an opportunity to do so. My qualification there is, and I said this on Friday's meeting, you do not have to speak if you do not want to. You can submit a protest. It'll be counted the exact same way as a person's protest that did speak. I don't want to dissuade you. You certainly have the right to speak if you so choose, but you don't have to. Your vote will be counted. Only valid written protests, not oral comments, will be counted as protests when the public hearing is closed. So that's an important thing for you folks to consider. If you are opposed to the rate increase, you had better submit a written protest. Your oral comments will not be enough. This is another item that Proposition 218 spells out. Up until the close of the public hearing, you could either submit your protest, or if you like what you hear, you change your mind, you had previously submitted a protest, you can withdraw it up until the close of the public hearing. Once that gavel goes down on the public hearing, everything is set. The vote, you can no longer submit or retract your vote. Immediately after the close of the public hearing, we'll shift into the count procedure. Will be, and this is to an earlier speaker's comment, Proposition 218 requires that the vote be conducted by disinterested parties, and we'll make sure that's done in this case. The vote process, or the count process, will be conducted right in front of everybody, and I don't know logistics how we're going to do this. Maybe we'll have a table or something. Yeah, it'll be done in public view, so any interested party can witness the count. The exact number for a majority protest is 5,269. That's a little over 50% of the 10,537 notices that were mailed. And then finally, if there is not a majority protest, so there's less than that 5,269 protests, then the board will shift into consideration of a resolution, which, if adopted, would actually implement some form of the rate change. If, on the other hand, there is 5,269 or more protests, the board can't consider that resolution. Basically, the protest rules, and the board has to go back to the drawing board and restart the 218 process if it wishes to pursue another rate change. I think that might be it.
Well, you said, how are you going to validate them at that meeting?
Thank you for reminding me of that. So my plan was, and we worked with staff on this, let's say we receive 5,500 protests. Okay, so we've done our initial count, we're over the majority protest level, but we have not validated whether those ballots are accurate. So, for example, you're only permitted one vote per parcel. If somebody has submitted 50 votes for their one parcel, that would be an invalid vote. So they would only count one, not the 50. Okay. So if we receive 5,500 protest votes, I would request the board to continue the public hearing so that we can validate the protest. That is, make sure that it's one parcel, one vote per parcel, so to speak. And again, that would be done in public view. We would probably have to continue it to this room, I would imagine, so just given venue constraints. But it would be an open process. Members of the public could observe. I would imagine I would likely be there to assist in that. So that would be how I would deal with that. We would have a separate validation.
But we're not closing the hearing, or did we close the hearing?
You're closing the hearing at the end of the public comment portion.
Okay, so it's closed so that nobody can bring in more after that.
Yes, and then you're
It's for them to know
you're
that.
continuing the meeting to afford an opportunity to
Not the
validate
hearing.
the protests. If there's 3,000 protests, that's a lot, but it's not even near the 5,269. So I would tell the board, really no need to validate. If we've got some party that has submitted 50 protests for their one parcel, that really doesn't matter, because even though they're invalid, we still haven't reached the majority protest level. So that would be how we would deal with that. Any suggestions from the board on changes? I heard maybe touching upon Proposition 218 reform, which I can do if a majority of the board would like that.
Well, just so the public knows, if you have a rental property, this property is one of our clients, and you get a response from the renter and you get a response from the owner of the property, which ballot do you count?
Well, if you're getting a response, they're both going to be no's, probably.
Well,
They're
but let's say
protests.
they're not.
Well, you won't get a response if it's a yes.
Yes.
Well, that's true.
Okay, so,
They're both no's.
but your point is, you're still only afforded one protest per parcel, so we would only count one of those two.
Well, just as an example, we have 2 renters here in our property. They cannot protest, can they?
Yeah,
Do
they
they
can.
separate parcel? Are they a separate parcel? Oh, okay.
Yes.
I thought they were
They're separate-
the same.
they have separate water
I thought they
meters.
were on the same parcel. Okay. They do have separate water meters. So, good.
A thornier situation, which I've thought about, but we probably will not encounter, is let's say the owner comes in, speaks in favor of the rate change, yet the tenant comes in and protests. Then what do you do? How do you count?
That's what I asked you.
Yeah. And my answer, trying to be conservative, would probably say, let's just count the protest. And they don't cancel each other out.
But if there's 50 people in the property and they all 50 turn in, we only count one.
If it's one parcel, yes.
Right.
Okay.
I would like the thing you said about how it's going to be counted. I think that should be in here. That, you told us what you plan on doing, but I think this should be in here for this presentation.
That is, if there's a need to validate?
Yeah, uh-huh.
The validating process.
If the board agrees. I just think if the people know it up front, they won't get mad if they don't understand it.
Yeah, if they see you throw 50 ballots in the garbage can.
I don't care for the 218 other stuff, but it's up to the other board, because I don't think it's going to pass, to be honest with you.
It was said, not only on the microphone, but I've also heard this around town, that we're just taking those protests and we're just throwing them in the trash. We are a public entity. We work for you. We are not taking any of the ballots and throwing them. There is a very large box in the back, and it is holding all of them in there. And there's nothing that's not counted. If we want to flip the coin, when I have somebody send in 15 closed envelopes with empty forms inside them, then it makes you question, gosh, what were you doing when you sent in those? But you know what? We included those in the no protest. Not filled out at all, but they were sent in, so they are included in. So
We don't throw anything away.
we're not throwing anything away, but it is questionable when somebody turns in 50 ballots for all themselves. I saw some the other night. Someone handed them to me, and I will tell you, 3 of them had very similar writing on them. And just looking in 2 or 3 of them, but I turned them all in. So it goes both ways if people want to make accusations, but I guarantee there's nothing being thrown away. And even the closed envelopes that came in that had a protest form that was empty were still put in the protest count. So, yes, sir.
I was wondering, is that 10,537, is that metered accounts Because a parcel couldn't it have more than 1 meter on it? And therefore, a parcel would have 2 people who are ratepayers to it. I'm talking like apartment units and duplexes that are on the same parcel, but you have 2 ratepayers. And the way he explained it is that in a duplex situation, you only get 1 vote, but there's 2 ratepayers paying. So in that scenario, you do have 2 people. So how do you justify just saying only 1 vote for a parcel?
Per meter.
Well, if you get a legal counsel, but I think if you get a bill in the mail from PID, you have a meter.
So that's what my question was. Is the 10,537, is that actual meters?
Let me clarify.
So,
This
but
isn't, this is not our requirements. This is Proposition 218. It says that a notice will be mailed to every parcel, not every meter. So you're correct that there are some parcels with multiple meters, duplex, apartment. There's also some situations where the reverse is true, where there's 1 meter but multiple parcels.
Yeah.
So we're going to go with what Proposition 218 requires. We provided the notice to the record owner of each parcel, and then there's 1 vote per parcel.
Could I ask one more follow-up?
But I think, Dustin, in what you said, 1 second, sir. What you said was that even if a tenant turned in a protest, we would probably still count it.
Not probably.
Well, not probably. We are
The most likely scenario is you have an owner that protests and a tenant that protests.
Exactly.
If we got into a validation procedure, we would only count 1 of those votes because it's only 1 vote per parcel.
But in the first count, we wouldn't worry about that.
In the first count, the very first thing we're going to do at the close of the public hearing is do a rough count. How many forms do we have? And if it's, over that 5,000 figure, then we've got to shift into validation mode. If it's less than that 5,000 figure, there's no need to validate because we're short of the majority protest.
Sir.
Could I ask one more about number 3 on the agenda? Okay. Council has suggested that the meeting proceed with the public comment period, and then you closing that public comment period, and you're closing that meeting up. And my experience is that other things can come to light in the meeting that the public weren't aware of, particular between your discussions, that then the public wants to be able to address again. So my suggestion is, couldn't we allow the public, don't close the public comment period, allow the public to comment, because when you discuss things as a board, it could draw up other questions that the public hadn't asked yet and want to address the board on in this meeting. Just a suggestion. Thank you.
For clarification, Dustin, would you clarify in a Prop 218 meeting like we were going to?
And we're not in public comment section.
No, I know we're not. I know, but just for clarification.
So I would chalk your request or your suggestion into the policy category. It's okay, certainly okay to ask for it. There's not a legal requirement to do that. I'll tell you, just me personally, I'm concerned about getting through this in a reasonable amount of time. I'd be concerned that we'd have a public comment period and then we'd just have to redo the whole thing over again. And we're going to be there all night. And
Which we're prepared to do. So
we're going to be there as long as need be.
If it's the next morning when we leave, that is when we'll leave. So thank you, Dustin. We just wanted some comments on number 3. So if you are commenting on number 3,
we're talking about 618. Is that the number of it?
218.
Yeah, I have a real strong regard for 218 and the way it's being handled. I think that it's being rammed through as quickly as you can do. I think that you're relying upon this structure of protest ballot, I think it's really anti-democratic that that you need a 51%, not 50% plus one, but a 51% majority to pass this issue.
50% plus one.
Plus one.
50,
Well,
not
the way it was
51.
written in your brochure was 51% in the colored brochure that we paid for, that we received in the bills.
I don't think so.
No way.
No, 50.
It was.
50% plus one.
All you gotta do is look at
That's
it.
not 1%.
That's a very small point of what I'm trying to bring up. It's within the 618, it seems that only
218.
whatever it is, that only ratepayers get to vote, ostensibly vote, if you call it voting, by filing a protest, and something of such a big magnitude impacts so many people within the community. Why you don't open it to a democratic process where all committee or all community people vote on it. It's an issue that everybody should have a say on, and not just ratepayers. Everybody uses water here, and everybody is impacted by the way water is allocated. And it's not just ratepayers. And I think that this is just the most undemocratic thing I've ever seen pulled by any community. It makes me think of Bel Air, California. And that's what you guys make me think of, those guys in Bel Air.
Well, thank you, sir. No comparison, but thank you for your comment.
Mr. Cooper, could I have a clarification on the way you're going to count votes? Are you going to take
Sir,
it to 618?
Sir, you will address the board, please.
Oh,
Thank you.
I thought it was to him because he's answering the question.
Address the board and then.
Okay, my mistake. How are you actually going to count the votes? Are you going to count them one by one manually, or are you going to use some other method?
Really, the only way we can count them is one by one.
We don't have a machine.
Yeah, there's no machine that counts them.
Okay. And then if it isn't the required amount for a no vote, it's automatic. If it's instead of a stack this high and so many sheets of this, 5,000 sheets would be this high, then it's automatically a no vote.
Not automatically. It has. Then if it's over the 5,000 figure, then we will make sure they're valid.
Yeah, but how are you going to make sure? Oh, are you going to count them one by one?
You're going to look at them.
Count them and validate them.
Yeah.
In front of the audience that night before your final approval?
No.
We'll probably continue the meeting and do it here.
Dustin?
Right.
Yeah, we'd have to continue the meeting. We would need access to the billing software, I would imagine. I'm kind of looking to staff to. It's hard to. How do you validate one vote per parcel? Well, one way to do it is to look. First of all, is this even a parcel, or is this just somebody in Magalia protesting? So we would run it through the billing system, I would imagine, and then we'd probably have to have some kind of spreadsheet where you're inputting every address or APN and making sure they've only got one vote.
Okay.
And again, that process would be done. It'd be open to the public. Anybody could observe.
Okay, I think that pretty much answers it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I just have a couple of quick clarification items. So in reading this, it dawned on me that it's not just properties that have a current meter, it's any property within the town jurisdiction is an identified parcel. Is that correct?
It's not necessarily coextensive with the town boundaries. It's PID's boundaries, which...
Okay, that I appreciate that clarification as well. So if you have a property in PID boundaries, whether or not it has a water meter, but it is with an APN number, then it would be considered an identified parcel.
Yes.
Okay, then I can state that I have 3 in town, and I only received 1 mailing. I have 2 with water meters and 1 without a water meter, and I only received 1 mailing with the little bifold in there that talked about your tiered system. So just as a matter of record, I am diligent with my mail and my documents. One other quick clarification question. I just want to make sure that I understand. So the public has, within the PID boundaries of identified parcels, we have a right to submit our protest form, whether it's for or against the rate increase, up until the close of the public hearing on February 8th, correct?
You don't put one in if you're for.
If not for a yes
Okay, so thank you for that. The public comment period. So up until the close of the public hearing of the public comment period.
Exactly.
And then at that time, it'll go back to the board. The board will close the public hearing, and then they'll go back with an unbiased third party to open the envelopes and count the votes.
Okay, maybe we should clarify, she used the word unbiased, but.
Well, disinterested.
Disinterested
So
party.
disinterested, unbiased, I would hope it would be
Yeah.
one and the same in this situation.
It is.
Okay. So a disinterested third party will be present. That person will open the votes in front of public view, and I'm sure there'll be some PID staff members and board members there as well. And then one final clarification, just how will you, well, that doesn't even matter. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Dustin, just for clarification, if anybody else is thinking this, she referred to, she has 3 parcels, but she only has a meter on one and not on the other 2. The only reason she received 1 letter was because we only have information on the 1 parcel that has a meter, correct?
Yeah, that's my guess. I don't know the specifics, obviously, but if you're correct, you've got 3 parcels, they're in PID service area, then you're entitled to 3 separate protests.
Right, and a clarification, I have 2 water meters, okay? One of my meters is in Kellogg's jurisdiction. 2 of my parcels are in Duncan's jurisdiction. The 2 in Duncan's jurisdiction, one has a meter, one does not. And the other is in Kellogg's jurisdiction, and it does also have a meter.
But you're still entitled to 3 votes.
I'm still entitled to 3 votes, but I should have gotten 3 notices, and so that just leads me to just a bigger 3.
We don't send it, we can't send a letter out to a parcel we don't have a meter on.
That's a good point. So what will we do about that?
We don't know about it.
Yeah, let me
That's a great point.
Let me give you a little
That's why you
clarification.
didn't receive.
But.
Let me, can I clarify?
Yes, George, please.
If we were to send notice and count, and do a total count of every parcel metered and unmetered, then your protest level would have been about 6,500 instead of 5,269. So we erred on the side of caution to not pretend we're playing a game. So we're counting the 5,269 folks that have a meter. That's the number that you need to get to. If you have a parcel in our boundary that doesn't have a meter and you protest, it will count.
Okay.
So actually, folks, you picked up 1,300 votes approximately on there, or at least 1,250 votes.
People that don't have meters.
That didn't have a meter, but we could have counted as a parcel.
It doesn't seem like it was given any thought. It's almost as a hindsight, and it's just being spoken to right now. But I appreciate being able to speak it again. Thank you.
Once again, I will remind the public, we didn't write Prop 218. We are just following Prop 218 on this, so.
Clarification on 2 points. Clarification on opening the ballots. I thought I overheard a comment by President Corolla about that some envelopes already been opened on the protest forms. Because I heard a comment about there was someone.
That's it if you want.
Yeah, George?
We get mailings and billings every day. So if an envelope comes unmarked and it's not stated on it that it's a protest, we open it because people want their payments applied to their bill. If we see a protest form, then it goes in the protest form box.
Thanks for the clarification. And second point, I understand about Prop 218. I understand, what the attorneys brought up, that's the bare minimum. And I think the reason why you have these crowds and you're having people pile up outside is being able to do more than the minimum. I know a couple directors have brought up the fact about putting out the protest forms in the water bill. It would have cost almost nothing except for the cost of printing. I think that's where most of this anger is coming from. Not that you guys are not following the law, not that Dustin's not a good attorney and following the law to a T, but as far as what could be done above and beyond that to give the ratepayers a warm and fuzzy feeling, similar to when the town was passing their sales tax hike. At least they went out and above and beyond what they had to do to try to get it passed. Those are my 2 points. Thanks.
Good afternoon. I'm Dale Alexander. I have a quick question. In the Congress, state, federal, every bill starts out at 0 with no, and you have to have a number of yes votes to overcome it. We've heard times where a bill passes or doesn't pass, 217 yes, 218 no, doesn't make it. We have a simple majority, we have a super majority, and we have a 2/3 majority. My question is, why was this bill put out with acceptance as the default position, where the no votes had to overcome the yes votes, and the apathy of the people, or the people who are misinformed or not informed at all, or were not contacted? Why wasn't this start out in the no position and require the yes votes to overcome the 5,200 vote majority? Thank you.
Ask the guy who
Dustin?
wrote the bill.
Yeah, that was a little bit I kind of anticipated, and that's fine criticism, but it really should be directed to the folks who drafted Proposition 218. That's why I put in the second bullet point there. Just keep in mind, before Proposition 218, there was really no record notice, no opportunity to protest. So if you look at it from where we were pre-Proposition 218 to now, the public have even a greater opportunity to control rates than they did before. So it's again, I keep kind of repeating the same mantra here. It's an okay statement from a policy perspective. The district ought to include a protest form. That's a fine statement to make, but just keep in mind there's no legal requirement mandating that.
If I may continue, why wasn't there a box for yes and a box for no on the form? Because you're assuming you're taking advantage of the apathy or the ignorance. And like they say, I don't care and I don't know. But you're taking advantage of the fact that people may just chuck the stuff in the trash can without reading it. They just grab their bill, chuck it. They haven't heard anything. They don't understand it. I mean, we've had several comments about how convoluted the actual wording of this was. Why, at the very least, wasn't there a yes and a no, and you tally between those two rather than rely on the apathy of the people to get this to pass?
Well, sir, the law doesn't allow it. That's the simple answer. If the law allowed an actual affirmative vote, we would have done it. But in this particular instance, by the way, if PID had been proposing an assessment or standby increase, then there actually is a ballot. It's a different process. But in this particular instance, it's not required. So I think that's an item for when and if the board ever goes through the Proposition 218 process again. I'd love to hear your comment before the notice goes out, because that would be the opportunity to say, listen, board, the law doesn't necessarily require this, but maybe you ought to consider as a matter of policy going above and beyond.
Sir.
Tom Adams. So where does it say in the law that a presumptive yes for the rate increase if a person does not respond? How did the board come up with it is a presumptive yes, and comment has been made about the apathy, or, okay, here's my bill. All the other stuff, well, it went in the garbage can. So why was the presumptive for the yes and not for the no?
Well, sir,
I'm
going to let legal counsel field that, but I will tell you we're not in the business of changing Prop 218. We're not allowed to change the way Prop 218 is.
Okay, so
please
show us where in 218 does it say an increase is a presumptive yes, but the protest against has to be an action taken by the public.
Okay, well, it doesn't say it in your wording, so just temper your expectations. But if you read number 4, that's why I gave it a direct quote, because I think that's important to folks. So it's, to answer your question, it's Article 13D, Section 6, Subdivision A2. If written protests against the proposed fee or charge are presented by a majority of owners of the identified parcels, the agency shall not impose the fee or charge. It does not say if written protest for the proposed fee. It says against the proposed fee. So that's where we, again, I think this is another theme here.
All right.
This isn't PID 218. This is Proposition 218. Cities, local agencies all throughout the state do the exact same process when they propose rate changes.
Your state legislators came up with this, not us.
Okay. So a direct question to the board is, why did not you send a protest letter, only the cost of the printing, to be included with the bills? Many of our population do not have computer, internet stuff, people over whatever age. And certainly the elderly have a difficult time, if they don't have internet access, to come to PID to personally pick up a protest form.
Okay.
That, I think, is the angst where the deck was already stacked to pass this.
Okay, sir,
through
well, I will
apathy.
tell you, sir, that a protest form was not required. All you had to do was write down, I am against rate increase, and send it with your name and your parcel number or your address on there, and that's all you had to do. It was included in everyone's bill, on the bottom of the bill, so you didn't have to throw away a separate piece of paper. It was on your bill, so if you read your bill, required no internet access, just opening up a letter, it was on there that you do not have to have a separate form. We provided special forms for the people here the other night, and we've printed them off for the people to come in and pick up or to download off the internet, but it was never required, not from the very beginning. All you had to do was write your name, your address, and that you are against the rate increase, and put it in an envelope and send it through the regular U.S. mail, or drop it off, or however you wanted to get it here, or hand it to your neighbor and say, I can't get to the post office, can you take this for me? And we would have accepted it, and we still will accept it.
Mr. President, our customer service staff field a lot of calls from people with that concern, and they were told that. All you need to do is write down your name, address,
parcel number,
and that you protest, and mail it in, and it'll count. You don't need a form.
I also have fielded a lot of calls during my normal workday and explained to everybody what we were looking at, and all you needed, you did not have to come to the meeting and be verbal. An oral vote didn't count, but I did need you to write it down, send it on a piece of paper, and put it in an envelope.
Mr. President, everyone is saying that when people get their bill, they throw everything away except their bill. So if we'd have put a ballot in there, they would have thrown it away too.
The only place it really was on the bill.
Yeah.
So it wasn't on a separate piece of paper so that it wouldn't have the risk of getting thrown away. It was on the bill.
Bob Dickinson.
Yes, sir.
At the Butte County, I spoke to those folks today because I read a few things online pertaining to 218 and water rates. The thing that I found most interesting is Butte County told me that every time they have a 218 issue that has to be voted on, they send out the ballots in the mail, number one. Water rate company down in Yolo County went through this process, did what you guys have done by not including the ballots available in the initial send out. Those folks were Butte County, or the Yolo County Superior Court, or the higher court, or where you call it. Those folks changed it back. So even if this does go through in a negative fashion for everybody here, you still will have the right to protest it under that, because it already has been reversed.
I'm sure Dustin probably knows the legal thing you're talking about, but we followed the rules. I believe Prop 218 has different jurisdictions, and different entities have different rules in what they need to. And
Yeah,
Dustin?
I don't know the specific agencies that the gentleman alluded to, but I can just speak for the entities I represent. A lot of them are water districts, sewer districts, community services districts, all subject to Proposition 218. And on the issue of whether ballots are provided or not, I would say the small minority of them include the protest form, along with the notice as a courtesy. The majority do not. And again, same comment. It's a matter of policy. It's not a legal requirement, but the board is certainly welcome as part of future 218 notices to include the protest form.
Hi, Chris Johnston. About the mail-in stuff. My mother's 82 years old. She gets gets a lot of anxiety. I have to explain things to her. This stuff is not easy for the elderly to understand, to get a grasp on it. So, when you guys say that you got mail-ins down at the bottom, she doesn't look at that. I had to go down to a different place and pick up a Form 4 to fill out. These things need to be explained in a public, in the news or something like that, for these people really to grasp a hold of what's being done, what's being said. Her anxiety level's off the hook because of this. She's on a fixed income. She has nowhere else to get any more money. 82 years old, lived in this house for 38 years, lived in this community for over 44 years. There's a lot of people out there. This is going to really cripple them up. This is going to make it a hardship for them. This is something you guys really need to think about before you push it through. And, until you're there, you're not going to understand. You're really not. And I feel for these people that are on these fixed incomes because it's going to slaughter these people. They're going to either not do without they're going to do without their meds. They're going to do without things, food. I mean, come on, let's really think about this. These are our parents. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My question to the board is, how do you plan on getting the word out to the public about the meeting by the 8th of February on Monday?
Please.
We're going to, we'll certainly post it. We're going to issue a press release as soon as this meeting's over. I got an Action News voicemail on my phone already waiting for me to call them and tell them. I have a feeling that you're going to see it on 24 and 7 and 12 and Paradise Post and everywhere
I've heard it on 3 different radio stations.
I don't think there'll be a problem with.
We can't be responsible for how they report. We can just give them the accurate information.
As long as the word gets out. The other thing is, I am a VIP, and the young lady that wanted VIPs there to do traffic control, that's stuff we do all the time, but we need a 2-week notice to get enough volunteers to go out and do that. And our meeting's not till the 10th of this month, where we'd ask for volunteers. So,
well, I don't think we're going to need it
You're
at
not
the
going to get
senior
VIPs.
center as much as we needed it here.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
The senior center parking lot, which shares a parking lot, Dr. Duncan was taking the Performing Arts Center.
Right.
Yes, but yes.
It's the same.
Hello,
Performing
Lord
Arts
Harvey
Center.
back again. I was listening, and seems like to me there's at least 2 people in here that have ratepayers that are disenfranchised over this thing. Because if you're hard of seeing, or if you're elderly, you're assumed that you're going to sort this out from the major part of the bill and work all this out and somehow get it back. And that's fine to think that the neighbor might bring it in, but what if the neighbor doesn't want to bring it in? So it sounds like to me that some of these people might be disenfranchised, and I'd only say to the board that I hope they'd get a hold of Howard Jarvis and see what they could do about it. Thank you.
Well, Lauren, you let me know those people's names. I'm willing to drive door to door if that's what it requires.
Sir, I don't know them. They're disenfranchised. They don't know they're disenfranchised either.
Thank you for speaking on their behalf. I appreciate it. Anybody else that would like to comment on item number 3? Directors, I'm going to come back to you for a short, brief comment on what you heard from the public. Director Kellogg?
Didn't expect that so soon. I've been listening. I really appreciate everybody's concerns, and they come out, and the work that they're showing to protest, because I voted against this thing from the beginning. And I think you just have to keep working and hope that you persuade some of the other directors to change their minds. But I think we can get rid of this thing and write another one really quickly that isn't so onerous to the public and the district and doesn't have a 5-year plan, has a shorter plan. And so I really thank you, and I thank you for your persistence. And I'm sure a lot of other people in the community are. And I've had all sorts of emails telling me thank you. So wish for the best. Keep persisting. Who knows? Maybe we can come up with 5,269 votes, and then you don't have to worry about the board. But probably not, and then that it's going to be up to this board to decide.
Director Flesher.
Well, basically the same thing. I've received quite a large number of phone calls, and I always appreciate talking to my constituents, which each and every one of you are. And I think you're really looking at this with good eyes, and I just say, hang in there, and we'll see what happens. And this 218 was actually stacked, and you didn't say what the constitutional amendment is going to be doing. As I understand, I've done some research on it. This was Cindy Tufts, who he's working with on writing the constitutional amendment, and you didn't talk about that, Dustin. But let's talk about it, if you think it's appropriate, at the PACA, that type of thing. When it first came out, districts were having a very difficult time getting it out, so they changed the rules so that they're all yes votes, which one of these people who come back here said, you see. So the 10,000.
They're not all, yeah, they're all yes votes until you send something.
Yeah, I say the 10,000, whatever we put here, I got it all written down in my notes. The 10,537 notices are all yes votes, you see. And the reason that they did that was because they knew that most people are not going to go back, at least half of them. They're going to throw it, and we mailed it out, and it was just a good round file kind of thing, and I've had several people tell me that's what they did with it. Well, anyway, so that was where they changed this rule, and I hope, Dustin, that this amendment, constitutional amendment, is going to take some of that out. Maybe it isn't.
No, it's not, actually.
It's not, okay, see, so.
It's up to you, Dustin.
Not as currently written.
Not as currently written, you see. So it's the way to bulldoze you people, is the way it's put together. And there's a lot of governmental things, I've been involved in a lot of them, that are that way. But anyway, so you just have to hang in there and see what goes on.
As far as the bulldozing part goes, we are not in charge of the way that's written, so
Nope,
we're not the ones driving the bulldozer. So I'd just like to make it clear, once again, to the public, we did not write Prop 218. We are merely following it.
The only area where I think we really failed, we could have included, and this is the first thing that came back to me in the middle of one night when they got that, we could have included a ballot in the mailing. That's where we really erred in the point. Any of the other 218s that I'm involved with, which I'm sure I'll be involved in some more of them, that's going to be the first thing that goes in there. You know, some valuable pieces of mail, and your bill is a valuable piece of mail. So, live and learn.
Okay. Director Duncan.
Well, I've gotten many calls, and this is a very complicated issue, and the reason we're doing it, I think, is very justified. Several of the people that I talked to, when they called me, they were against this, and I think I convinced them that it was an unnecessary thing to do. I think at least 3 people thanked me for the information I gave, and it's very cumbersome. It takes a lot of, I think I talked to them for at least 15-20 minutes and explained to them that a lot of things. The first thing that always bothers me is I don't think anyone's bill is going to be doubled if they use the same amount of water as they used last year.
Or in 2014.
Everyone keeps saying they're going to be doubled. And I think that is a very bad misinformation.
Well, 40% on your 10K plan.
That's a far,
Still have a dead well in a dead backyard.
but do you?
Are you planning on staying on the 10K plan all year long?
Yeah,
we can't talk. I shouldn't have engaged.
This is not a public session. This is a thing. I'm just saying this is misinformation, and 40% is not 50%. I'm an accountant, and it's far from it. And for somebody to say their bill is going to double means 100%. 40% is far less than 100%.
Okay.
Okay. Off topic. Okay. So that's my feelings.
What are we doing here? We're making a comment on this item number 3, right?
Did you have any? Yeah, I know, that's hard to tell.
Comments, okay?
Hard to tell.
Or a motion.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna get to that. I'm gonna make a comment just because everybody else does. But, you know, Director Flesher accused your state representatives, state of California representatives, of consciously writing a tricky law to take advantage of the public. Now, that's what he just stated over there.
That's exactly what they did.
Okay, well, were you in the room with them? I don't know. I'm just thinking that maybe what it is that the state of California representatives felt that this type of language was needed in this particular type of an instance where you do go to the public each and every time you need to increase your rates. So maybe they made it a difficult hurdle there so that it would only be the egregious situations that would warrant a majority vote by the public to rescind it. The other thing I want to do is move that we appoint legal counsel to conduct the public hearing as mediator.
I'll second.
Question on that, on your motion. One is, are the board members going to commit that you're going to take notes? That there will be an opportunity after the close of the public hearing for director input? That's point one.
I think what he's trying to say is,
yes,
if you want him to run the meeting,
you can't interrupt him either.
Well,
you don't run the board as well as the public.
Quick question. Director Corolla does a great job at running meetings, but the public section part of it, where we're doing the 218, is what you would run.
That's.
He's going to run the public participation.
Yeah, and you will just turn it over to him at that time, which is normal,
But he is going to run both the public and the board.
He is?
As far
He's
as
going to tell you not to talk when you're not
essentially, we are not going to talk, and we are not going to answer the public, and we are not going to comment every time they make a comment. We're not going to comment back. If there's something that you would like to have a question answered by staff, you will take and say, this lady right here got up and said, I have a question about. We're not going to answer that question right there, or legal may decide to answer that question, but we are going to, at that point, write down, we need that question answered, and then we will ask staff or legal or whoever it is addressed to after the public participation part of the meeting is over.
Right.
Okay. So we are not going to engage the public in a...
You're not going to be running that part of the meeting.
No, that will be run by Dustin. So he will be running not only the public, but he'll be running us too. So we will have to conform to his rules.
Clarifying question number 2 is, do you want to see this PowerPoint? Do you want to see it as is or with additional amendments? What I heard is the validation slide, consider adding that. And then I also heard consider a slide on the 218 reform proposal. So,
well, my answer for just personal, yes on the validation, no on what may never happen in the future. I don't think I want to confuse
a lot of people if you talk about what might happen.
They're going to take that as something that is happening right now, or something that we should wait to happen, or it's going to be construed many different ways,
and some people will say, oh, it's already happened.
We're only following Prop 218 as written right now.
Right.
That's very true.
And I'd like the PowerPoint is going to be before the public participation.
Correct.
Right.
I'm
hoping that this may answer a lot of their questions. That's what I want.
Okay. Well, I heard 3 of you that are not interested in adding that as a slide. Is that...
Gentlemen?
Okay, fair.
Oh, I definitely would like it, but I have no problem if the majority doesn't want it. That's all right too.
But I think we should just stay with the way Prop 218 is written, not on proposed ideas of how to reform it and change it that have not been voted on by the state of California and the voters.
I agree with you completely, but one of the things that I might put food for thought, if it reaches the ballot, then perhaps at one of our regular meetings, you could comment on it to clarify it to us as the voters.
I suspect there would actually be an opportunity before that, where Aqua may ask its member agencies for resolutions of support and the like. That's typical with something like this. So if that happens, that would be a good opportunity to discuss it at that time.
We might get to throw in a no vote for Prop 218 or a yes vote for Prop 218 at that point.
No, I don't think it would be a no vote for Prop 18. It would be perhaps a yes vote, because as I understand it, and I've done some research on it, it's going to make Prop 218 more palatable?
Well, it's actually an alternative procedure to Proposition 218. So you as a public agency, if this were to pass, you'd have two options. One is the Prop 218 route, and one is the Article 10 route, which is, we don't have a name yet for the second law, but it would be housed in Article 10 of the state constitution.
See, for the public, the aqua group that we belong to, which is a statewide water agency organization.
Well, Doug, let's give the explanation. Let's give the explanation of our question was only
putting this together.
So I'm hearing add a validation slide. Let's not add. At least three of you are saying let's not add at this time the 218 reform suggestion. Okay, third clarifying point. Are you okay generally with the sequence of events? I guess my PowerPoint would go first. Staff's PowerPoint would go second. More of a frequently asked question type.
It's just a presentation.
Okay. Third, the public hearing, public input. That would be closed. Then we would go to the, well, refresh my memory, George. Are we going to director comment at that point, or are we going immediately to a vote counting?
That's probably their choice.
Yeah.
Vote counting? Yeah.
Well, maybe give some direction on that.
I would think we need to go to vote counting, because why should we take another 2 hours to discuss it and haggle about it and come up with a program if we can't vote on it at
Good
the
point.
end?
We have no idea. We have no idea what we're voting on.
It might be more time savings for public and everybody if while you're counting votes, we did discuss.
Mr. President, I would think that the quicker that we can get to the vote counting would be better for the evening.
I think it'd be easier on these kind of people for the amount of time that we will probably be there to get straight to vote counting. So I would say.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is
if the
my PowerPoint.
Board is in agreement on
It's fine.
straight to vote counting after the public comment portion is closed.
Okay, my PowerPoint, staff's PowerPoint, public hearing, public input, close that, and then vote count.
Clarification for all the members of the public and the press is that during that entire time until the very end, or maybe 15 minutes before the very end, we will be accepting comment cards for you to get up and speak. There will be somebody walking around collecting comment cards, or they'll be passed to the side, and we will have locations. Your protests will be accepted right up to when he smacks the gavel and says, that is it. After that point, even though the meeting is still running, there will be no more protest forms accepted until to the very last minute.
Yep.
When he closes the public hearing portion. After that point, no more protest forms.
I have a question. I heard that you were going to, the people who handed in slips at our Friday meeting are going to be there. You're going to use them also?
That's my understanding.
Yeah, in the order we collected them, we've collected them in order, so the new ones will just go on the
What
bottom.
if the people aren't there?
Then
we'll call their name if they don't stand up.
What I'll do is I'll call three names. First up is John Smith, then Jane Smith, then Richard Smith, to give everybody advance notice to kind of get up in queue, and I'll keep doing that, so
You'll ask
hopefully have.
If you say, if they don't stand up, then you'll assume they're not there?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. I take this to mean that you, the board, are going to take a vote to sidestep the responsibility of standing in front of the public. You're delegating this to an employee. Is that not correct?
We're going to be there.
Oh.
He's just going to be running the meeting.
I know.
He's going to be running and timing the people on the comment portion of it. And
will the board be present?
Oh, yes.
And you will be?
Absolutely.
We'll be making notes and listening.
We'll be sitting there right there.
Okay. When you allow him to run the meeting, are you not abdicating one of your duties?
No.
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 Who says no? What's the backup?
Four of us don't run the meeting.
Yeah, more
Even if the
people come in
president did,
meeting.
it's only one.
We can
merely
all,
sidestepping.
a president can always ask somebody else to present the thing.
Are all the staff is included in the questioning? We can address questions to members of hired staff?
No. You
No.
can address
You're going to
questions to
comment-
members of the board.
Board, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, you can only ask the board. You can't ask any of the staff.
But I don't feel comfortable having somebody representing the board who is not on the board.
You're still asking the questions to the board or your comments to the board. He is just timing you.
He's just running.
He's just timing you and is going to be calling the people, and he is going to be saying, John Smith, Jane Smith, Bob Smith, next one's up on there. He'll be running that portion of it.
Another question, was he not the person at the last?
There, Director Kellogg just said it. He's the master of ceremonies, if you want to put it that way. It doesn't change our board responsibility at
Fine.
all.
I had a question about the previous meeting. Was Mr. Cooper, your learned counsel, the one that admonished certain speakers as to the propriety of their delivery, that interrupted during their delivery?
Well, I think what Dustin was going for there is if we're gonna have the first person get up and say, I'm against paying this rate or the proposed rate increase, and then the next guy gets up and say, I'm against the proposed rate increase.
That's not what happened.
Okay,
People
then direct your question at legal counsel and he'll answer.
If I may, Mr. President, if someone wants to spend their 3 minutes talking about some entirely unrelated matter, the Super Bowl, I will interrupt them and ask that they speak to the matter at hand. That is the proposed rate increase. So if that's your question, will I interrupt folks potentially to keep them focused? I will, because
That's not the question. My question was what you found improper about those people whom you did interrupt in the last meeting, the meeting here on Friday night.
I think he's referring to the public participation portion.
Yeah.
So this is a formality of boardrooms. There's a public participation portion of every agenda, of every PID meeting, every town meeting. It's for items not on the agenda. So it's only focused on items that are not planned for discussion as part of the agenda.
Okay, so you interrupted their presentation because you detected a variance from the program?
Exactly.
That is the
And it was just
the
like...
issues were not germane.
Right. Earlier today, I spoke up and reminded the speaker that now was not the opportune time to speak to that topic. You will have an opportunity, but it was not today.
Okay, I thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Board.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Maybe not quite on the agenda situation, but the February 8th meeting date, this meeting today, what kind of public notice was adequate for the people to come to this meeting today? I mean, there were people showing up, okay? But what kind of public notice was there? The notice, the report about the last meeting, okay, showed up in the Enterprise Record, I think, in today's paper, okay, in an article, okay? Sure was belated report, get that report. Let's make sure we get some good communications going on here. February 8th is off, that's just a couple days away, and all this other kind of discussion is moot if we don't get people to come. And so I'm just...
Once again, oral protest is not what counts. A written protest is what counts. Make sure if people can't get to the meeting or don't have adequate notice and enough time to get to the meeting, that if they want to protest, we need a written protest. We will not accept oral protests. It will not be...
What system, I'll call it, you as a district or newspaper representative, what system are you going to make sure that in the adequate time of February 8th, that's going to be well known by the public? I just asked this one lady over here, how did you know about this? I forget what your answer was, but it was not one that said, oh, I read in the paper.
You know, Dustin, the adequate time is what's defined by law.
Right.
Would you remind them what's defined by law?
Sure. Meeting notices are governed by the Brown Act. It's an open meeting law. It depends, the requisite notice depends on whether it's a regular meeting or a special meeting. Regular meeting is 72 hours. The district's practice is actually much more than that. The agenda typically goes out, what, Friday, Georgiana?
Friday.
Friday before a Wednesday meeting. The Brown Act requires for special meetings 24 hours advance notice. And that's what we're conducting today, is a special meeting. And we satisfied that. So what staff mentioned earlier is we are not just relying on what the minimum legal requirements are for notice. In addition to that, and help me out here, George, the plan is to have it prominently displayed on the website, have a press release. It sounds like there's going to be some press interest.
Direct contact with press that have left messages with me.
We don't control the press, but we give them the information, and if they publish it, great, because that's just more notice to the public.
Can we get it on the electronic sign?
I think we're going to try for the electronic sign on the Skyway. We made a comment in the ad hoc meeting yesterday.
If you wish, as a board, I will do that.
Yes. There. George is doing a press release. Like he said, Channel 12 is standing by on your phone, pretty much.
24, yep.
Yep, Channel 24. Press release. Trevor's here. I think we can assume we're going to have a lot of different venues out there, and then if any wrong information, we are not responsible for that. We are going to release the correct information, and if the news does not, or the paper, or whoever does not report it correctly, we're not responsible for that.
Did George says we're going to be on, try to be on the electronic sign too?
I said if
the board
wishes, that's
would
part
like
of
that.
this whole discussion.
I'd like the board to be polled to see if we favor putting it on the electronic sign.
We'd already talked about that yesterday, so that is something that I think would be a good thing. Seems to be where everybody drives by, and a lot of people know that there was 85% water, so hopefully they'll know that there's a meeting.
I thought I saw a higher figure.
I haven't drove by it, Larry.
Huh?
For 97.
You got to look at that sign.
97 now.
We've been driven by it in a few days.
Didn't say I looked at it every time, I just said I looked at it.
So I've heard two directors in favor of trying to get space on the electronic sign. Is there a third? Okay,
Third
good.
one here.
Good. All right.
People really watch that sign for all kinds of advertisements.
I hope they're not the
Really
drivers.
works.
We've already given them instructions, so let's keep going, folks.
I think I've got all the clarification I need. Good.
We don't need a motion, right?
Well-
I need a motion.
Oh, you did? Oh, yeah, you did. I forgot. It's been
read
so
the-
long.
And Sepp seconded it.
You're right.
Can we read the motion back, just for clarification?
It was a motion to appoint legal counsel to conduct a public hearing as mediator.
Okay, with all the
clarifications were,
that legal name.
one, that directors will refrain from commenting. They'll write down their questions, and they'll have an opportunity to have those questions answered after the public hearing. Two, I'm going to modify the presentation to add the validation procedure, if it applies. And then three, we're going to notice the meeting, obviously in accordance with the Brown Act, and then above and beyond that with website, press release, press, you'll do interviews with the press as requested, and then the electronic sign.
Question?
seemed like I was thinking of one other point for clarification on there. Do we need to make an amendment to the motion for that, or just clarification was sufficient?
I also heard that the vote will be conducted, the vote count will be conducted immediately after the close of the public
Correct.
comment
That's
portion.
maybe what I
So
was thinking, yes.
we'll make sure the sequencing is as you wish.
I know what I was thinking of. We will not be coming after the public participation part is closed. And we go, unlike a normal meeting where we might come back to the directors and then someone from the public might say they've got
Yes.
a comment. We will not be going back to the public at that point.
That's you may if you want, but that's not what I've heard from you.
My desire is to just public participation part, we're going to close that. It'll come to the board. We're going to do the validation, then it will come to the board, depending on what we have for a vote and what we decide.
Discuss and vote.
Right. You should
Is that
have
good with
a key.
everybody?
You should have a
Otherwise,
key
we'll just rehash
phrase
the exact
that
same
you-
things
when
over
you're telling
again.
us to shut up, so we won't be politically
I'll be ready.
insulted.
I'll be ready.
Okay.
Not that it's necessary, and I have no problem with it, but this is going to be quite a lengthy process. Even if you do it fastly, it's going to be quite a lengthy process.
I think that's why we want to be respectful. We want to be efficient as possible and respectful of all the people that wish to speak.
We've got to be that way.
I think we also have to look at, too, that, and I don't know how Dustin will run this portion of it, but I would hope the people of Paradise understand if everybody gets up and takes 3 minutes to say, I oppose, and there's 500 people, that's 1,500 minutes divided by 60. You can see where this goes, the hours and hours and hours. I am committed to being there till it is done. So if everybody wants to get up and say, I oppose the rates, even though they've sent in their form, which is really what counts, well, then that's what we'll sit through. But after a certain portion, I would hope people see, just like any agenda item that we have here, that you can only go on and say, I oppose this, or I am for this so many times. Even if you were saying, I'm for the rate increase, I would only want to hear it about 10 times before I would say, I get it. But your piece of paper, if it was for a yes vote, tells me more than anything else. If we sit here all night and listen to 1,000 people say yes, well, then we're going to be here an awfully long time. So I hope that people bear that in mind. We understand what your piece of paper means. We're not without feelings. We're not without understanding. We don't dream up the projects that come before this board and where we have to ask for money, but that's just where we're at. So, sir, you wanted to make a comment?
Yes, I'm reviewing Prop 218. It states that if a tenant in an apartment complex is sharing in the cost of the water bill, their vote counts.
So we already alluded to the fact that we are going to count that vote.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Lauren, last comment.
Thank you. Are we still going to stand on, you're going to charge me 20 cents for an extra no vote ballot out of the office? They won 20 cents a piece for everyone I wanted to get past one, and some of my neighbors aren't able to get here to get them, and I don't feel like I ought to have to pay 20 cents to take them to them. So are we going to stand on that? Is that your position? One, and two.
We're not going to vote on it.
Yeah,
We can't vote, it's on the agenda.
Yeah, it's not on the agenda.
And two is, I suggest at the meeting that whoever moderates it at the beginning of public comment just ask for a show of hands of who's for it and who's against it, and then that would eliminate a lot of people just standing up saying I'm against it or I'm for it, in my opinion. And then if they had something pertinent beyond that, then they would fill out a card and they could say something, because there's going to be lots of people who want to say something beyond that, but there's going to be some people who only want to say yay or nay, and we ought to be able to take that with a show of hands, I would think. Thank you.
Lauren, that was a great idea. That would be, I don't know if we can
I
count it.
don't know if we
quite
can
like
do
that.
it legally or
I don't
not.
know if we can count it legally like that, but that is a great idea.
You tell me. We can do that, but you're absolutely right. It's not majority rules for those present.
Yes.
But if you want me to do that, I can certainly ask that.
Well, then maybe we would ask the public at that time, those of you that are against it, I'm sure we're going to have at least the first 10 people that get up there will say that. If they have a different valid point they'd like to bring up, then by all means, come up to the podium.
Hi, I'm Hannah-Laura Maddox, and I've been waiting to comment on a point that the board is speaking of. And the problem is you're talking of two different points. One of them is the raise in the rate, the other is the process by which you're going about trying to get that raise. And I think those two have to be separated because people feel differently. I understand the need for a raise. I do not understand the process that you're going through to get that raise. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. Sir, you've already commented on this.
It's a separate issue.
Well, it still was related, I'm sorry, it's related.
Separate issue. Just a question.
It doesn't matter. We're
If
not
it's
to
not a
public
separate issue
comments
over
yet.
3,
There is going to be a place for it, a new issue.
yeah, there's going to be, if it's not related to this exact item number 3, then public participation is still coming up. So we can see if we can take your public participation at that point, if it's something different than item number 3. Anybody else would like to speak to item number 3? Okay. Do we all understand the motion?
As
We don't-
clarified.
As clarified, exactly. I was going to say, and we do not need an amendment to. Okay, got the clarifications. Roll call vote, please, Georgianne.
Director Hunt,
Yes.
Director Duncan,
Yes.
Director Fletcher,
Yes.
Director Kellogg,
Yes.
President Corolla.
Yes. Passes a 5-0 vote. We are now going to move on to item number 4, public participation. Individuals will be given an opportunity to address the board regarding matters not scheduled on the agenda. Although the board cannot take action on any matter not on the agenda, comments will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Opportunity for public comment on agenda items will be provided the time they are discussed. Obviously, we push this to the end by the board, and comments limited to 3 minutes per agenda item. Is there anybody that would like to speak to something that is not or was not on the agenda? Sir, we'll see if this falls into that category.
We'll see. Would the board be willing to provide 5,600 ballots for mailing? And we, the public, will foot the cost of mailing these out so that they could be mailed to you.
I don't,
Not on the agenda, you couldn't.
not on the
decide
agenda, so we can't even vote on it. Yes, I'm sorry, sir.
Right.
Lauren, did you have something?
Yes. I'd like the board to consider putting on the agenda if this tax measure passes, we should have plenty of money. And I think we'd have the money to pay George Barber his $200,000 for his 1-year severance.
Oh,
and get somebody else. I wonder if the board put that on there for public comment to see what the public thinks at some future meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Anybody else who would like to speak to something that was not on the agendized items?
I'd like to ask a question. When they sent this thing out first, this first letter, there's something in there about wastewater, that you have to build a treatment plant. Now, why do we need a treatment plant for wastewater? That's gray water. There's not enough septic tanks in here that you can suck clear water out of.
It's not, George,
I
don't know if we
can
should.
answer that after. It's not appropriate to have a discussion right now.
Yes, but that will
Needs to
be,
be explained
this
at
will
the
be,
meeting.
this will be at the meeting on Monday night, a very long, and we have been talking about this for 2.5 years. So, and very recently, every single month for the past 8 months.
Wondering why the high fees when I can't see any reason for a wastewater treatment plant, and he's going to have to explain that.
2.5 years we've been conversing about this. The past 8 months, every single month, we have had a long and lengthy conversation on this item. So, George is going to give a presentation the night on the 8th, and if everybody's watching, you should understand why there's a rate increase needed. But you can go to the workshop that's on our website if you're on your computer, and you can go to the YouTube link, then you can watch the workshop, and he explained it there in those 2 workshops.
Well, I pulled off one of the 56 pages of the thing to try to explain this, and I couldn't find a good reason. I saw the reason for the rates, but I didn't see a reason why we needed a water treatment plant.
Can't discuss it tonight, but George will give a presentation, or you can go onto the website.
Okay, that's all I have.
Anybody else? Okay.
I'd like to know what is being done to address the restructuring or repair of the Magalia Dam so we can store our full allotment of water. Is that still an issue? Is some of the money going to be used for that?
That's a whole nother project that is way more dollars than you want to hear right now. We would hope that the state would pay for that. And normally I'm not going to comment to public what you're asking, but that is a whole different project, and it will require vast more money than we're looking at right now.
I'm sure.
So hopefully sometime the state will come through with that.
Okay, thank
But
you.
yes, we look at that every month too. Anybody else?
Did you have something to say?
Okay. I noticed you've been talking to a lot of people in the crowd. Did you have a comment that you wanted to bring up for us, or?
If I did, I would step to the podium, thank you.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to make sure. Anybody else that has a comment during the public participation part? Seeing none, we're going to close that section in there. We're going to go on to director's comments. I'm going to start with Director Hunt, and we're going to move right down the line. Actually, you know what? I'm going to start with myself tonight. Okay, so once again, like I said the other night, this is not an easy task. This has been very emotional for everybody, not just you in the crowd, but I think everyone on this board and staff. So I'd just like to point out and voice my disappointment that this board could pass 2 employee group contracts with a 5-0 vote, not a 3-2 split vote, but a 5-0 vote. We passed both of those employee group contracts. But yet when it comes time for paying for those contracts, which is the largest part of our expenses, we cannot get a vote of all members on this board to do so. You vote to approve the contract, but you don't vote to approve how to pay for it. And that is the largest part of our expenses. And what most people in our fair town don't understand is that we're professing that we're all for the people and everything, but you voted on the contract. It was 5-0 vote. So that's very disheartening to me. As to a recall, I received a lot of nice calls on the phone. I fielded about 28 calls myself, took the time, answered every single one of them. The only one I didn't answer but yet called back was when I was on a call with another customer, ratepayer, and I called the other person back. My phone didn't give out names as to who was calling me. I asked they identify themselves if they didn't want to. That was fine. I spent anywhere from 5 minutes with some really nasty calls and all the way up to 30 minutes explaining to people what we were looking at here and why we are looking at doing a rate increase. And most of the people understood by the end of the phone call why we were doing it. I don't know if any of you were in the crowd that I talked to, but I did field a lot of phone calls. I think we all did. But I did receive some very nasty phone calls, and they weren't fun. A couple of them were related to a recall, and I've heard people say it up here. I just want you to know, I joined this board to give back something to the community I was born and raised in. There's a lot of people that say they live in this community. I don't know how many of you were born in this community. So I was born here almost 53 years ago, grew up here. My grandmother moved here in 1944 and had a very large orchard and piece of property. So I hold a lot of ties to this community. I didn't just move here. I'm not just here to spend your money. I didn't just come in from out of the blue and decide that. So I decided to give back something to the community. I wasn't looking for anything in return. So if you think this is an easy job, then come on up, fill my shoes, because it's not. I lose a ton of sleep on this. Like I said, I was born and raised here. My dad was in public service. He worked for the fire department and vied for a lot of the fire and police wages in the 80s and 90s, was president of the Fire Association. When I talked to him, when I was thinking of doing this, I talked to him in depth about what I was getting myself into. I looked at that he is responsible for a lot of the changes and reforms that our fire and police entities now enjoy. There's a lot of things you can go back and look at what my dad did on there. And that's what I was hoping to give back to this town. But it's not an easy job. A lot of the decisions that the board and I make up here, they're not easy. I've lost more sleep over this issue than most people in the crowd have. So I just want to let you know that it's not an easy thing. Like I said, I received a lot of calls, and they weren't very nice, but I fielded every single one of them. I'm not here to pad my political career. Doing what is needed for our district is not an easy task, but I will not violate my fiduciary and moral responsibility to the people of this town just to look good. I'm not going to tell you that I'm not going to raise your rates, because that won't pay for the things that we need, and it will not keep this district running. Directors are and have been responsible for probably more disinformation and dissension in with our ratepayers by professing the wrong reasons why we are doing things, and it's so disheartening that in 2011 we knew exactly where we would be today. We knew exactly where our budget would be today, and even with the drought and loss in revenue, Kevin still pretty much nailed it right on the head where we would be today. But yet there's a lot of people that think it's some big surprise that we were just out there, we took the pot of gold and we just threw it up in the air and everybody grabbed some just fell down the drain. There's no surprises, there's no illusions, there's no mysteries why we are at this point today. We set forth a budget in 2011. We ran it for 3 years with rate increases for those 3 years, but we knew where we would be today. And that was before this project came to light that we're looking at. So I just want people to think about that when they're thinking this is such an easy job and we're just doing whatever we want, coming up with projects however we want. It's not an easy job. So now I'm going to go to Director Hunt.
I only have a very brief comment. Nobody's spoken about the phone calls that they've received in support of PID and the action we're taking to safeguard the district by increasing rates. But I have received calls like that. I was stopped in Safeway, 2 different locations, Saturday late morning when I was in there, and I thought I was going to be accosted and somebody wanted another piece of me, but it was quite surprising. And I just thought that I should at least make you aware that there are people, and I think maybe the majority of them just don't need to voice it, so they don't. But there are people who commiserate with our activities here. They know what we have to go through, that we have to take the strong stance and an unpopular stance of increasing these rates. But when we increase these rates, it will allow the district to continue operating and to pay for the projects that we're mandated to pay for. And we're doing this with handcuffs on because of the Proposition 218. Do you not think that we would, if we had the choice that and the ability, that we would give lower rates to these poor, destitute people who don't use very much water in the first place? But that's not what Proposition 218 gives us the power to do. So we have tried with a very complex formula to get through that and achieve those goals. But it's not appreciated, maybe because it's not understood. What I've heard from the public the last couple of meetings is that it is too complex, and therefore I can tell you that I am looking for a much more simple rate structure to put forward to the public. Something that they can understand, and something that will still yet pay all of our bills. Other than that, I have no further comments.
Director Duncan? Thank you, Director Hunt.
I think I remember a quote that I like, and this is the one I'm going to use. A smart man knows what to say. A wise man knows when not to say it. And I'll wait till the next meeting.
Thank you, Director Duncan. Director Flesher.
Yes, I was going to just make the comment that I had made quite a number of statements that I think that basically they're all accurate. But I'd like to thank the people within the district that have talked to me, and that's been bunches of them over the last 50 days or even before we went out to this type of thing. And one of the things that we have in the PID is a very competent staff whether they're in the ditch, throwing dirt out, or punching figures, or whatever it is, and we have that. And I have no intentions of harming those people and their families, because that's what you're doing when you're doing that type of a thing. When I voted on it, I made the same very clear at the start that the only thing that I would do for a pay raise is because, you can see on here if you have one of these things where they're all at, would be SSI. And I was going to stand on that. I've been a bargainer before in several collective bargaining agencies, and that's what we came up with, you see. And the staff should have been aware of that, because our arbitrator was talking to them on this type of a thing. But we have an excellent staff. I've never read across any staff more competent and dedicated to the job than the staff that we have, no matter where they're placed in there. And when you deal with that, you're dealing with their family structure and their future, and you've got to be very cautious when you do that. So I have no addition. And people I've talked to in the community, some of them are right here, are aware that we have to have a rate increase. It was just the way that we handled it, is the way that they're telling me that was bad. So we've got a great district here. We have super water, and it takes a lot of money, but for what we have, maybe not as much as we think to run it. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you. Director Kellogg?
Oh, I think I agree with Larry. This is a good night for me not to say anything other than I like what I heard.
Thank you, Director Kellogg. We will now adjourn this meeting and hope to see you all back on Monday, the 8th, at the Paradise Performing Arts Center at 6:30.